December 12, 2016, Detroit, Michigan, a city once known as the heart of America's automotive industry, is undergoing a renaissance.
The city of Detroit it's Motown, right? It's the Motor City.
Going back several years, we had, the auto crisis, the recession, we had this housing crisis.
Around 2016, Detroit started seeing better days. Companies started moving back. There was a lot of energy.
The city is really on the comeback now.
Longtime Detroit resident Conrad Green has lived through all the city's ups and downs. But nothing could prepare him for what he experienced on that cold Monday morning.
My wife and I were sitting, looking at television, looking at the news as we normally do. And my wife got a call.
Yes, speaking.
And it was the Genesis House. Genesis House was a transition house for homeless women.
Conrad's granddaughter, Nicole Smith, was temporarily living there with her son, Isaiah. They're saying Nicole and Isaiah aren't at the home.
What? Hold on.
Just then, Conrad sees a shocking news bulletin flash across the TV screen.
Simultaneously, I saw Isaiah on the television.
The photo is shown of his great-grandchild, Isaiah, who's only 18 months old. He's instantly concerned.
According to the newscaster, Isaiah had been found wandering the streets of Detroit's west side all on his own.
Thankfully, the young boy is now safe.
Isaiah was dropped off at a fire station by a Good Samaritan.
Conrad immediately springs into action.
So he contacts the local police precinct that's holding Isaiah, and he says, hey, this is my great-grandchild. He rushes down there.
Along the way, Conrad and his wife try to reach their granddaughter, Nicole, by phone.
They're frantically trying to get a hold of her, and they can't.
I continued to call Nicole, and I used the firm granddad voice. Nicole, call me. She never did.
News quickly spreads to the rest of the family, who were also unable to reach Nicole.
I got the call, and I'm like, what is going on? Y'all seen Nicole? I'm like, no.
I'm like, this ain't normal. It's something wrong.
Nicole is not going to abandon her kids. She's not going to leave them on the streets nowhere.
Everyone's asking, where is Nicole?
Detroit native Nicole Smith was used to overcoming hardships.
She developed problems when she was a baby. She had seizures. She limped on her right side, and she didn't really have full strength or use on her left side.
But Nicole displayed remarkable courage in the face of her numerous health challenges.
She was not an oh, woe is me person. No, she did take it in stride.
Nicole was very vibrant. She was bubbly.
Nicole is a very caring, loving, family-oriented young lady.
Her cousins was her friends. You know what I'm saying? She loved her music. She was funny.
Nicole also loved her longtime boyfriend, Damian Carver, and the couple wanted nothing more than to start a family together.
Well, Nicole was interested in being a mother.
And in the fall of 2007, her dream came true.
She got pregnant and had her first daughter, Kilana.
Tragically, though, heartbreak was on the horizon.
Kilana only lived for 5 months. She ended up dying of Cribb's death.
It was a devastating moment for the young couple, but in time, they decided to try again.
She ended up having a son 2 years after Kilana passed. Then the next year, she had a daughter, and then she had the youngest girl.
She was a good mother. She did anything and did the world for her kids.
However, when the couple's middle child began experiencing medical issues, it put further stress on their relationship.
They both were having problems with fully taking care of the 3 children. Then it was just really a lot for both of them. They needed help.
Family members took in the couple's children while they worked on building a stable home.
Their relationship, it was being tumultuous and what have you.
Nicole and Damian eventually split. And around the same time, Nicole's mother passed away.
This was another hard time for Nicole.
She didn't have a job or a home of her own. She was suffering mentally and physically. That meant Nicole was especially vulnerable.
Although I and the rest of the family was a source of support for her, she was still having difficulties. She ended up getting pregnant and having Isaiah. And she didn't know who the father was.
However, Isaiah's birth in 2015 proved to be a turning point in Nicole's life.
Isaiah, his first words were mama.
Isaiah was a mama's boy. Anywhere that Nicole would go, he was on her tail.
They went and lived in the Genesis house, or transition house for homeless women. Genesis house was trying to help her get her own home, and she was in the process of it. She was actually supposed to move there maybe like within a month.
The more strides Nicole took towards building a happier life, the more she wanted someone to share it with.
Nicole was putting herself out there. She was starting to date again.
She loved her men. The ones she deal with, she'll try to go all out to do what she got to do to make them happy.
She was looking for love.
But now, a breaking news report has seized her family's attention.
Isaiah had been found on the street. Well, I got up right away and went to the police station.
When Conrad and his wife arrive at the station, they're relieved to be reunited with their great-grandson.
And Isaiah saw me and said, "Granddad, Granddad," and ran to me. And, you know, I picked him up and held him. And so, where's your mommy? Where's your mommy? He didn't say anything.
Conrad tells the police no one has been able to reach his granddaughter Nicole since learning of her disappearance.
Something's not right.
And I said, well, this is more than a missing child. This is a missing person.
Let us know if you haven't heard from her by tomorrow morning, okay? Yes, sir. All right. Sweet.
All right, come on.
As night settles over the city, Nicole's family is beginning to fear the worst.
I kept calling her the whole night. The whole night.
Did she have a health emergency? Did someone attack her?
She never did that one. Just disappeared. Never. I knew something was wrong.
The morning after her 18-month-old son was found wandering the streets of West Detroit, police officially declare 33-year-old Nicole Smith a missing person.
Her family had been trying to contact her nonstop for the last 24 hours.
The biggest question is, how does this one-year-old child become separated from their mother?
When detectives speak with Nicole's grandfather, that's exactly what they want to find out.
When was the last time you saw Nicole?
Sunday afternoon. She and Isaiah came over to the house.
Nicole always visited us on Sundays, and I would pick her up at Genesis. She would come and spend a few hours with us, and then I'd take her back home.
However, Conrad says when he picked Nicole and Isaiah up that afternoon, something was troubling her.
Hey. Nicole said, "Granddad, I'm gonna do something, and I don't know if I should do it or not." And so she had been being private around that time, so I said, well, Nicole, we brought you up right. You know how to make good decisions, and if you need some help, let us know, because we'll help you.
If you have any questions or need help with anything, just let us know, okay?
Thanks, Granddad.
So anyway, we got to the house, and Nicole did her normal thing. "Hi, Granny, how you doing?" Went through all of that.
Leaving Nicole and Isaiah with his wife, Conrad subsequently went out to run an errand. But when he returned, his granddaughter was gone.
When I got back to the house, Nicole wasn't there, and Isaiah wasn't there either.
Did Nicole and Isaiah leave?
No, they're not downstairs.
He went upstairs, where Nicole at. My grandma was like, she downstairs. We was like, no, she ain't downstairs.
The plan was for me to drive her and Isaiah back to Genesis' house. She didn't say anything about getting picked up.
And that's something that is really one of our rules. You need to tell us when you're leaving the house. It's just for knowledge of where you're at, in case something happened to you.
Do you have any idea who might have picked Nicole up?
I really don't. I'm always the one who drives her.
The family revealed Nicole suffered from seizures and she had some physical disabilities.
It's possible that something bad has happened medically. You know, maybe not even something criminal.
Still, Conrad can't get that last conversation he had with Nicole out of his mind.
I felt actually a sense of dread because she told me that she might be doing something that she didn't know if she should do or not. And so my mind went to, I wonder, did she do what she thought she shouldn't do?
Detroit investigators share the family's concerns and immediately get to work trying to track Nicole down.
Nicole had been missing since December the 11th, so that would be our starting point, and we would work backward from there.
They start calling hospitals. They check homeless shelters, and nobody had seen her.
We go back to the fire station because that is where Isaiah was turned over to the battalion chief there and a firefighter. So those two individuals were interviewed.
According to the firemen, a man walked into the station the previous afternoon with Isaiah in tow.
They're told that the man who dropped off Isaiah is a black man in his 30s.
He said he was on his way somewhere and observed this child wandering in the street alone.
I seen this kid just wandering the block, not a parent in sight. I thought maybe you guys could help.
He was instantly concerned, and so he picked up Isaiah, took him to the fire department.
He provided the name of Robert Johnson, and also at that time provided a telephone number.
That's the number he gave us.
We'll give it a shot.
Okay.
They want to talk to this Good Samaritan just in case there's some additional information, something he may have seen to help them with their investigation.
But when detectives reach out to Robert, they run into a problem.
They call the number, a young female answers. They ask about Robert Johnson, and she says, I don't know Robert Johnson. I had never heard of this person. Why would a Good Samaritan leave them the wrong telephone number?
In the mind of a detective, that's a clue.
This Good Samaritan may not be such a Good Samaritan after all.
For hours after Nicole Smith disappeared, Detroit detectives have just made an unsettling discovery about the man who claimed to have found her son.
He presented himself as Robert Johnson, just a Good Samaritan, who happened to see this child wandering about with no adults in sight and took it upon himself, in a sense, to rescue the child.
But now investigators are wondering if this Robert Johnson is really who he says he is.
Come to find out, he's given a fake phone number.
We begin to conduct our queries to try to identify who this individual was.
Unfortunately, there were no cameras at the fire station. They instantly go back to the family asking, have you ever heard of Robert Johnson?
We was just all at home trying to just figure out who it could have been, who is this person, because we never met the person.
Fortunately, Nicole's cousin Ashley comes forward with information that she believes could help the investigation.
It was actually like my daughter who actually started coming up with suggestions because they was real kind of close.
There was this guy that she was talking to on the phone a lot.
Do you know his name?
No, she never told me his name.
She was happy. She just on the phone, she lollygagging.
But Ashley's interactions with her mysterious male friend weren't all positive.
I watched my cousin call his phone from sun up to sundown one day. He's sitting in that dining room and kept redialing that number. I said, Nicole, what is you doing? Why did you keep dialing the number?
What are you doing? Why do you keep calling them?
Because he's not answering.
She said he was supposed to come over or come get me, something like this. I'm like, okay. But she kept calling that phone. I'm talking about she was furious, mad. That's the first time I ever saw her like that. Mad.
More recently, Ashley says Nicole had made a connection with an older man she met online.
I told them that she was talking about this old man that she had just met.
She didn't tell me his name either, but I know she was planning on meeting him in person.
The old man should message him only on Facebook. She'd sit in the dining room, set her phone on the charger, message him.
To investigators, it sounds like a potential lead.
Now, the police are concerned because we know that social media, Facebook, well, that's breeding ground for predators. So they're wondering, did she meet up with the wrong guy?
To detectives' surprise, Ashley says this wouldn't be the first time Nicole has fallen prey to a predatory man.
She done got raped at a bus stop before.
It was a little over a year ago.
On August 17th, 2015, Nicole was at a bus stop around 7:30 in the morning in front of her transitional housing.
She felt something hit her in the head. And when she woke up, she was in the alley and she had been raped.
She called me the morning that it happened and she was crying. I said, Nicole, go to the hospital. And so she went and she did go get the rape kit done.
Nicole is not able to really give a good description of the person who assaulted her, but what police are able to determine is that this person left semen.
That DNA sample was sent to the state crime lab for processing. But more than a year later, Nicole's attacker still hadn't been identified.
It's not uncommon for states to have a long backlog of untested rape kits. And at the time of Nicole's disappearance, her rape kit still had not been processed.
After speaking with Ashley, investigators contact the state crime lab to request a rush on Nicole's rape kit.
Whoever this individual was that raped Nicole could also be involved in her disappearance.
Detectives also file a subpoena for Nicole's cell phone records, and one number immediately stands out to them.
Once we received the data from the phone company, we were able to see that there were 77 telephone calls placed between Robert Autry and Nicole Smith.
Could Robert Autry and Robert Johnson be the same person?
Not only have they had contact via phone, but also on Facebook.
This began to form a picture in our minds. Based on my line of work, there can't be too many coincidences.
They're anxious to find this Robert Autry. Does he know where Nicole is?
Records, Detroit police have just identified a person of interest in the 33-year-old mother's disappearance.
She had been in near constant contact with this individual, this Robert Autry, in the days leading up to her disappearance.
Now the question is, who is Robert Autry? They wonder if maybe this Robert Autry is Robert Johnson, the Good Samaritan who dropped off her youngest child at the fire department.
Phone records show that Robert Autry last called Nicole on December 11th, one day before Isaiah was turned over to firefighters.
After December the 11th, he hadn't placed any more calls to Nicole. That's not normal.
Investigators uncover more troubling information when they start digging into Robert Autry's past.
While he was a high school student in 2003, he actually assaulted another student.
He's 16 years old, and he is accused of assaulting a mentally challenged girl.
He lured her into an abandoned building and raped her.
Ultimately, he's prosecuted, he does a plea deal, but because he's a juvenile, he doesn't receive any substantial sentence, but he is put on the sex offenders list.
Unfortunately, though, that wasn't enough to teach Robert a lesson.
But it doesn't stop there. What the police also learned is that in 2011, Robert Autry assaults another woman. This young lady is recovering from drug addiction. She's at home one night. She says that someone breaks in, comes through the window, and he proceeds to assault and rape her.
Eventually, that DNA comes back as Robert Autry.
It began to look like this guy is a predator.
Records show that law enforcement tried to prosecute Robert again, this time as an adult. But the case fell apart when the victim refused to cooperate.
There are many reasons why someone may choose not to go forward. You know, it's traumatic.
So what that meant was that Robert walked away scot-free.
The striking similarities between the alleged rape in 2011 and Nicole's 2015 bus stop assault aren't lost on police.
This is clearly a guy who was targeting vulnerable women.
And when detectives send Robert Autry's 2011 mugshot to the firemen who helped Isaiah to safety, it's a match.
they were able to confirm, yes, this is the man who dropped off Isaiah. It's the same guy who claimed he was Robert Johnson.
Now that his true identity is confirmed, detectives hope they'll have an easier time tracking down their #1 suspect.
The police are looking for Robert. They're questioning people in the community.
They subpoenaed his phone records, and at the same time, they continued to reach out to Nicole's circle of family and friends.
When police speak to Nicole's best friend, Melanie, she says Nicole recently told her about a new man she was seeing, a man detectives now suspect is Robert Autry.
She was always either talking about him or talking to him on the phone. He had a hook, line, and sinker.
She just kept saying, my boyfriend, my boyfriend, my boyfriend. And I'm like, okay, I need to meet this boyfriend. And she said, you will meet him.
Only Melanie says that never happened. Instead, Nicole's new man seemed to intentionally keep his distance.
She had Robert come over to my house to pick her up one day. And it was kind of peculiar how he would not come to my door and he parked backwards where I couldn't see his face.
It was weird.
Melanie says in the days ahead, Nicole also started exhibiting strange behaviors with money.
She had asked me for about $200. And I said, why? She said, well, I gotta pay my rent at the shelter. I said, you already paid it. She said, well, I was behind. I said, okay. So I gave her the $200. And then a couple of days later, she called me and said, well, I need probably like $50. And she gave me another excuse.
I think she was just doing what he told her to do.
That wasn't like Nicole, because Nicole always paid her rent and she always paid her bills.
Nicole received Social Security benefits, so she received money every month. She received a bridge card.
This was a government assistance card that Nicole used to buy food.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Detectives decide to follow the financial breadcrumbs by filing a subpoena for Nicole's financial records.
All of her financial, dealings had stopped when she disappeared, except authorities find that her bridge card is still in use.
Someone is taking Nicole's bridge card and using it at gas stations and other convenience stores within the area.
They know it was used at a supermarket and a liquor store. They're able to pull surveillance from those stores.
I started watching the video.
Wait. Stop there. Freeze that frame.
And there he is. It's Robert Autry.
In Detroit, Michigan, 30-year-old Robert Autry has emerged as the prime suspect in Nicole Smith's disappearance after being caught on camera using her stolen food stamps card.
We find Robert Autry taking Nicole's bridge card and using it at gas stations and other convenience stores within the area.
With a bolo out on Robert, detectives circulate his photo among Nicole's family members. And Nicole's cousin Ashley immediately recognizes him.
Like one day I went to the store with her. She wanted to walk by herself. I said, no, I'm gonna go with you. And that was the first time I ever saw the man. Hey, how you doing? I'm her cousin, Hey.
Hey, what's up? I'm great. Hey, so did you get that message I sent you?
Yeah, I heard it.
At the time, Ashley didn't realize this was the same man her cousin had been talking to on the phone for weeks.
She got him some money or whatever, then he gave her a hug, and then he walked back.
What did you just give him?
$200.
Are you serious?
It's not that serious. He said
That's your money.
I don't want to talk about it. Just let it go.
I just felt like it wasn't right. I don't feel like he liked her. I felt like he was using her.
It became apparent that he was targeting her, so to speak.
And when investigators get their hands on Robert's phone records, they uncover another bombshell. Nicole wasn't the only woman in Robert's life.
His current girlfriend was living in that same transitional home that Nicole Smith was currently living at. He was essentially siphoning what Nicole was given to care for herself and her son, for his girlfriend, and for their children.
The investigators now have enough evidence to secure an arrest warrant for Robert, but they still have to find him.
Days go by without any leads on Robert's whereabouts. Until December 19th, when Nicole has been missing a full week.
They get a call from an anonymous person who tells them that Robert Autry is staying at an apartment building in the area.
As he's leaving, they take him into custody, and lo and behold, what does he have in his pocket? Nicole's bridge card.
Robert Autry was brought to Detroit Police Headquarters. There, myself and Officer James McDonald conducted an interrogation of Mr. Autry.
Robert, I'm not going to beat around the bush with you here. We're concerned about Nicole's well-being, and her phone records indicate that you two did talk.
So what?
Robert Autry denies having any kind of real relationship with Nicole other than a friendship.
So you two weren't in a romantic relationship?
Mr. Autry claims that he did not see Nicole on December the 11th.
But as investigators lay out the evidence, Robert starts to sweat.
He knew it didn't look good if he was the last one to see her.
We have two witnesses who can positively ID you as the man who dropped off Isaiah at the fire department.
When confronted with the truth, Mr. Autry had to change his story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did see her that day.
He admits that she had called him for a ride.
He says to police that, look, he went to pick up Nicole from her grandfather's house to take her back to her transitional housing, that when he gets there, he drops her off.
It's a story the investigators are easily able to poke holes in.
So if you dropped off Nicole, why did you take her son to the fire department? And what's with the fake name?
Why does it matter?
To say the least, this interview conducted with Robert Autry was filled with lies, inconsistencies, information that he could not explain. When confronted, he would just provide an answer that frankly didn't make sense.
What were you doing with Nicole's bridge card?
I was borrowing.
He said that she gave him the bridge card and that he had permission to use it, and he used it with her consent.
Robert, where's Nicole? Her family deserves to know the truth.
I didn't do nothing to her.
He's adamant that he had nothing to do with it. He dropped her off and he went about his business.
But detectives are convinced that isn't true.
Plainly put, Mr. Autry was lying.
They are convinced Robert Autry knows something about Nicole's disappearance. Unfortunately, though, they can't prove it.
This is such a difficult spot for investigators to be in. Everything's circumstantial.
When you don't have a body, when you don't have a person, it's very difficult to convict. It's very difficult to bring charges.
And so they need more evidence.
Without any proof connecting Robert to Nicole's disappearance, police are forced to release him. When the news reaches Nicole's family, they're stunned.
I understood if you don't have enough evidence, but that was a hard situation.
I was mad, you know.
Where's Nicole? That, for me, was the goal.
But the more time that passes, the harder it is to believe Nicole will ever be found.
I used to get off work and go searching for her on my own, going through railroad tracks, going under bridges, you know, going to abandoned houses.
We were looking everywhere. We were just trying to figure out, you know, where was she at?
Days go by. Days turns into weeks. Weeks turn into months.
Finally, in December of 2018, when Nicole has been missing a full 2 years, there's a new development that reignites the investigation.
Police get a big break in Nicole's case.
Mr. Autry had found himself arrested on an unrelated matter.
Robert Autry tells prosecutors, give me a plea deal and I will give you new information about Nicole.
He says, I can tell you.
2 years after Nicole Smith went missing, Detroit investigators' #1 suspect in her disappearance has just been arrested on an unrelated case.
It's December 2018, and Robert Autry is arrested on another assaultive case.
He is once again accused of rape, and he's facing a life sentence.
He realizes this is a case he can't beat, and so he's very afraid about spending the rest of his life in prison.
In hopes of avoiding a life sentence, Robert reaches out to prosecutors.
Mr. Autry offers the information that, oh, I can tell you where Nicole is.
Nicole's poor family has been waiting for answers for 2 years. And now Robert Autry, when faced with a life sentence, tells prosecutors, give me a plea deal, give me a lighter sentence, and I will give you new information about Nicole.
And so they do. They make a plea deal with him.
He is able to plead to a reduced second-degree murder.
Mr. Autry provided exact information as to where Nicole could be found.
The location is an abandoned apartment building in West Detroit.
Members of the Detroit Police Department responded to the area in which he had indicated.
They go inside and head to the basement. They find under a bunch of garbage a big black bag.
We made the unfortunate discovery, the remains of Nicole Smith.
Oh my God.
Obviously, at this point, the body is very badly decomposed.
It's a difficult scene to stomach, even for seasoned law enforcement officers.
To find her dead just sickened me. The state of disrepair and just the garbage everywhere, the dampness, the gloom of just this building. You know, how dare you?
The medical examiners ruled Nicole's cause of death to be strangulation.
To add insult to injury, Nicole's body was just a few blocks away from her family all this time.
She's right, like 8 blocks from my house. I done passed this building, and she's right here at the building I done passed every day. That's crazy.
8 blocks. I was crying, like my cousin gone.
I remember Granddaddy Greenlee calling me. He said they found Nicole's body. I remember screaming.
Apart from Nicole's location, Robert refuses to give up any more details of the crime. But even without a full confession, investigators are able to form a theory of how Nicole died.
Robert Autry obviously is someone who's addicted to power, control. He's looking for people that he can assault who are vulnerable. He's purposely targeting those with mental and physical disabilities.
Robert Autry was taking money from Nicole. He used her.
The authorities suspect that Nicole had begun to catch on to Robert's scheme.
You don't want to even answer her calls, and so after so long, a woman gonna get fed up, and she gonna cut you off.
Maybe the last conversation Nicole had with her grandfather was alluding to this potential confrontation. Maybe she was finally going to cut Robert out of her life.
Based on Robert's own statement, investigators believe he picked Nicole up from her grandfather's house on the afternoon of December 12, 2016.
Hey, so, you got that money I asked for?
No, I'm not giving you any more money.
What you mean?
You already took all my money. Get a job.
Nicole, she's real feisty. So he might have said something to her in the car, and she gonna smack back.
She's decided to walk away, to stand up for herself, and to not deal with this abusive relationship.
She must have got right back at him with something he said. Maybe he just flipped out.
Go be a man.
Overcome with rage, detectives speculate that Robert wrapped his hands around Nicole's throat.
Get off me!
What happened?
He chokes her to death, and it all happens in front of Isaiah.
He's a monster. How could you take somebody's life in front of their child?
Once Nicole was dead, Robert realized he had to get rid of her body.
Now he has to cover his tracks. And so he takes Isaiah to the fire department. He takes her remains, he puts it into the basement of this apartment building.
To find her in this grave, in this tomb of a building, this is something that undoubtedly will remain with me for the rest of my life.
But before Robert is sentenced for his crimes, a new piece of evidence emerges that casts his actions in an even more despicable light.
A year before Nicole was murdered, she had been raped by an unknown assailant. That rape kit was eventually processed by the Michigan State Lab.
There was his semen in that rape kit.
I don't believe Nicole knew that Robert was the one who raped her.
He raped her before, and you still sought her out.
The fact that this man victimized her twice is so disgusting. He's pure evil.
On January 15th, 2019, Robert is sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison as part of his plea deal.
He deserved what he got. He deserved more than what he got.
I just felt like, no, that's not enough. That's not enough time.
The way you tortured her, I feel like you should go through the same torture.
Robert is never charged in connection with Nicole's 2015 sexual assault.
That was very, very, very sickening to me. That they was only giving him charged with her murder, not the rape, because they couldn't detect it until after she was missing.
To honor Nicole, that same month, her friends and family hold a vigil at the abandoned building where her body was found.
We got the visual together because we wanted her soul to rest. And a lot of people turned out, and it felt good. It felt so good.
I was happy and I was sad at the same time. I was happy that we was able to close that chapter. I was sad because that was my best friend.
We couldn't let that building stay there. My dad worked very hard on getting that building torn out.
We was praising the Lord. The very joyous time. We were all happy to see the building go.
Today, Nicole's son Isaiah is being raised by her cousin, Shannon.
He's doing real good in school. He's bright. He's happy.
Her other 3 kids stayed with their father's family.
I wish she was here. I wish she was here to say I love you one more time, because I never got a chance to tell her I love her before she left.
An off-duty police officer makes a horrifying discovery.
He's screaming, uncontrollable.
They go inside, they see blood on the inside of the door. There's blood on the knob, there's even blood on the wall.
It's an unthinkable tragedy, made all the worse by the young couple's undying love for each other.
From the very first time Dion laid eyes on her, he was pretty much in love with her. It would always be, I love you, I love you, I love you.
But the mystery of what happened on this catastrophic day will be no small task to unravel, ultimately leaving many to wonder, was it a terrible accident, suicide, or murder?
It was a dangerous situation and nobody even knew about it. There was obsession, lies being told, and lovers on the side.
She was like, I'll get you your money later, and he refused to take that as an answer.
She was in so deep, she didn't know how to get out of it. She was dealing with something, but she didn't know how to get away from it.
Tuesday, March 16th, 2010. It's a sunny afternoon in East Nashville, Tennessee. A vibrant up-and-coming community in Music City, USA.
It's become just an attractive place for a lot of people.
But at 4:46 p.m., an emergency call reaches Area 911 dispatchers. On the line...
When they ambulance get there, they transport her to the hospital.
To take her own life? The answer to that question will not only haunt the entire East Nashville community.
What has happened to her is just almost unreal to me. It still lives in my mind. Why?
Shari Bethel was born on July 30th, 1985, to a loving family that pampered their precious youngest girl.
Couldn't wait to take that baby home and show her off. I got on a Greyhound bus and rode from Fort Worth, Texas to Paducah, Kentucky to show this baby. She was just special.
She just had this little sweetness about her. She had this real high-pitched voice. And she was always smiling and happy.
In the fall of 1999, Shari's family moved to Nashville, Tennessee. There, Shari blossomed.
Shari was the popular girl. Everybody knew her. She was just this big joy to be around. Everybody loved Shari.
She was hilarious. She was funny. She was outgoing. She was one of a kind.
She was just that spark. You know, she had that sparkle about her.
In high school, Shari was a full-blown knockout, turning heads everywhere she went.
All the guys wanted her because she was absolutely stunning.
She was real petite body-wise, and she had these nice legs, but then she had this chest. So, of course, she was gonna get guys' attention first.
But there was one unassuming young man at Hunters Lane High School who was especially smitten with Shari.
From the very first time Dion laid eyes on her, he was pretty much in love with her.
To Shari, though, Dion was just another hopeless admirer.
She called him freckle face. That's how she referred to him. He still had a little boy face, a little boy figure. He'd flirt with her, he'd try to hang out places that she went, just trying to make herself be known. And she just was not interested in it.
After high school, the two former classmates went their separate ways.
Dion goes off to the military in the Marine Corps, and Shari goes to college. So they lose contact with each other.
Dion was serving overseas in Iraq while Shari was attending Bethel University back in Nashville.
For Dion and Shari, it seemed their futures were headed in different directions. Until one fateful day in 2006.
Hi, can I help you?
It's me, Dion.
Shari was working at the jewelry store, and he had come in on Christmas break from the Marines. He's like, hey, Shari, reintroducing himself, and she was really in shock at how he changed.
Dion Carvel?
Yes, what's going on, girl?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Dion he had buffed up. He's pumped up. He's no longer that skinny guy. He is handsome at this point. He's filled out.
Wow. So, do you live in Nashville now?
No, I'm actually in North Carolina. I'm stationed at the Marine base there.
I can't get over how much you've changed.
She's really checking him out, and that's not something that she's done in the past. He realizes for the first time, I've got her attention, and I'm gonna keep it. So they exchange numbers. They start a long-distance relationship.
Oh, God, he wooed Shari like every girl wants to be wooed. Even if they don't say it, they want it.
He's lavishing her with flowers. He's taking her to expensive restaurants. He's buying her gifts. He knows that Shari likes fine things in life. So he does everything he can to impress her.
As a Marine, Dion had a passionate interest in guns. A passion he enjoyed sharing with Shari every chance he got.
Shari developed an interest in knowing more about how to shoot the weapon, so he was always teaching her how to shoot and how to aim.
I occasionally take her to the gun range, where they would fire the weapons.
With Dion still stationed in North Carolina, and Shari continuing to call Nashville home, the distance between the couple only strengthened their affection for one another.
She loved Dion. Dion walked on water in Shari's eyes. And it was almost annoying. They would always say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. They would go back and forth, up and down the interstate. If he didn't come here, she'd go there.
He immediately joined Shari in Nashville, where the two married and began a picture-perfect life together.
Shari landed a good job at an area hospital as a registrar, so she talked to a lot of incoming patients, helped them with their paperwork, and made appointments. She was very successful, and she was very friendly with all the people there. Dion was just as successful. He enrolled in the police academy, graduated, and was assigned to the Nashville Police Department.
He was ecstatic. He was very excited, and we were all very proud of. My grandmother went to his graduation ceremony. We all were very happy for Dion.
They were, talking about maybe children, having kids. They purchased a house. What every young couple strives to do.
They had the fairy tale relationship.
But this fairy tale would not have a happy ending. As Shari is rushed to the hospital with a seemingly self-inflicted gunshot wound to the face, investigators begin surveying the scene at the Cartmel home. What they uncover will pull back the veil on Shari's picture-perfect life and reveal that this beautiful bombshell had something to hide.
I just started screaming, what?
I was shocked. I would never want to know that my sister's heart was broken that bad.
After nearly 3 years of marriage, it seemed nothing could stop Nashville residents Dion and Shari Cartmel.
Dion was a well-respected Nashville police officer and a former Marine. Shari was a popular employee at a local hospital. They're headed in the right direction, no question about it. Everything was going well for them.
Then, on the afternoon of March 16, 2010, everything changes in the blink of an eye.
Dion contacts 911. My wife has shot herself. He's screaming, uncontrollable.
During the 911 call, he was panicking.
When Nashville police and EMS arrive on the premises, they find Dion in the throes of despair as his gravely wounded wife is raced to the hospital.
He was crying. He was falling down on the ground.
He's going crazy. He's hitting himself and screaming. They try to get him to calm down enough for them to understand what's going on.
Other police officers who he had worked with him were trying to console him.
He was just too distraught to do anything.
Hey, man, I'm Chaplain Evans. There was a police chaplain on hand to comfort Dion, and Dion told him what happened.
Dion explains to the police chaplain that he and Shari had planned a quiet evening at home that night.
We're sitting in the living room. We're cleaning our guns. They both was off from work that day, so they had planned the evening to spend together. They said it was our day to be together. They had started cooking dinner and watching the movie Training Day.
Dion was cleaning his guns and playing with his guns, and Shari was looking at the guns.
Can you show me how to take apart your AR-15?
For real? That's a big gun.
Yeah.
Alright. He went to the bedroom closet when he heard a gunshot. Come back out of the closet and saw that she was on the sofa and shot herself.
Shortly after listening to Dion's account, the chaplain is approached by Detective Robinson.
I spoke with the chaplain and I asked him, what did he tell you?
He wasn't in the room. He said he heard the shot. So he's obviously really, really distraught by that.
Police are trying to figure out what really happened.
As the chaplain relays Officer Cartmel's story to Detective Robinson, the whole incident sounds like a tragic accident. Still, Detectives Postiglione and Robinson intend to play this one by the book.
The fact that he was a police officer really meant nothing to us. We just had to evaluate the crime scene, determine exactly what happened, and just go from there.
But as they begin processing the scene, the detectives receive the one call everyone's been dreading.
I had communicated with a detective that I had sent to the hospital, and he called me back and told me that Shari was pronounced deceased.
News of Shari's sudden death hits her family like a ton of bricks.
I was upstairs in my townhouse talking on the telephone. I was the church secretary at that time to my pastor. And I hear a knock on the door. And I look out my window. There's police knocking on the door. I go downstairs and I let him in. Yes, sir. And he said, sit down. I said, no, I'm not going to sit down. I said, where's Mom? He said, Shari's deceased. I was torn to pieces.
The phone rang. Where's my sister? She was screaming at the top of her lungs. And then she tells me, and I just said, what? I jump up out of bed and I just started screaming, what? What? Oh my God.
While Shari's family struggles to come to grips with her death, the detectives' preliminary search of the Cartmel home seems to support Dion's story.
They noticed that there is a gun right there on the ottoman. There's blood on the gun.
We make our way to the kitchen, and the oven's on. When you open the oven, there was some chicken breasts in the oven that looked like someone had stuck in there. They hadn't finished cooking.
When police search the rest of the house, though, they make a curious discovery.
In his third bedroom, he had made it into like a makeshift gun range. He had brought in some tires and some phone books. He was actually using the bedroom to fire guns in.
For the average citizen, a situation like the one in the Cartmel home might be cause for alarm. But for a revered cop and gun enthusiast like Dion, it isn't so strange.
But nothing I know that was really creepy about him. A lot of officers that worked with him said, hey, he was a normal guy, he was real likable.
This is a household where guns are normal.
I think if you go around and talk to a lot of officers, you'll find that they buy and purchase a lot of weapons.
While officers continue to probe every corner of the house, Detectives Postiglione and Robinson examine Dion.
He had blood all on there was blood on his face, blood on his hands, I saw blood on his pants, and he had a white t-shirt on what appeared to me to be blood spatter on his shirt.
He said that he offered CPR to her, so it's plausible that the blood could have been transferred that way.
So the blood transfer could have come with his interaction. Anytime you touch somebody who's got blood on them, obviously you may get some blood on you.
Yeah, I know it's hard, but we gotta do a GSR test. Just proceed. Get it over with, man.
He's a cop. He knows the procedure. He knows they're going to ask him tough questions. He is cooperating with them. He gives them his clothes. He knows that they have to go through his cell phone. He gives that up. He lets them test his hands for gun residue. So it seems like he's cooperating as much as he can.
We had no reason to think anything else happened other than a self-inflicted gunshot.
As police continue processing the scene, Shari Cartmel's accidental shooting death is the lead story on the news that night. But as momentum for this case builds, information will soon come to light that suggests there's much more to this story than meets the eye.
You could look in Shari's eyes. The brightness was gone. That flame was gone.
On March 16th, 2010, 24-year-old Shari Cartmel succumbed to a gunshot wound in an apparent accidental shooting in her own home. The following day, Nashville police sit down with Shari's grieving husband and fellow Metro officer Dion Cartmel for an official statement.
I'm feeling sympathetic towards him and also the tragic loss of life, all of that. But at the same time, I'm eager to hear what he has to say.
Dion begins by describing the events he discussed with the police chaplain the previous evening.
You know, our Tuesday, so we just hang out together and do it at the house. So go, whatever.
It was just as he said the day before. They were watching a movie together, preparing dinner, and Dion was showing Shari how to take apart and clean his Glock.
I'm showing her, like I said before, going through this how you take apart, this is how this works. We're watching a little train day.
She goes into the kitchen and check on the food.
I'm gonna go put the chicken in the oven.
Perfect. And that's when he reloaded the weapon. He sets it on the ottoman. She comes back in, sit on the sofa next to his left.
All right, so what's next?
I'll reach for the AR. I was gonna make sure how this one works.
As Dion grabs his AR-15, he hears the Glock go off with a shattering bang.
I reach for that. When I grab it, I hear a bang. I can feel the force like on my face. I jump, I freak out. I looked over there, that's when I see she was laying over. I was like, babe. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel real. I was like, baby, can you talk to me? So I was waiting on her to talk back, but she wasn't saying anything.
Now, the way Dion describes it, it makes sense. But it is a little different than the way he described it to the chaplain the night before.
First time, he told them that he heard the shot from the bedroom. But then his story changes to they were both in the living room watching a movie.
While investigators take note of the discrepancy, They realize that people who've witnessed horrific tragedies often misremember key details.
We took the fact that his wife had just been shot into consideration. Yeah, we understood.
As the interview proceeds, Dion informs them that this unintentional discharge of a weapon wasn't Shari's first.
He told them about a prior incident that took place with Shari. That once, when he was not in the home, she fired the gun and put a hole in the wall.
Apparently, she had the painting out, so the chamber was messing around, trying to figure out if the slides were completely forward, then the rounding got fired. Almost like on fire. It went through the mattress, up here, through the wall.
The evidence for that discharge is easily verifiable. It's lodged in the wall of the Cardmel home. But detectives question the likelihood of a similar situation in this case.
His reasoning was she picked it up maybe thinking it was unloaded and fired the weapon and then accidentally shot herself.
He said, well, she probably didn't realize that I had just loaded the gun back up. But either way, you don't point a gun to your face and pull the trigger. That seems like a very strange thing to do.
With the notion of accidental death being called into question, police are now entertaining the possibility that Shari took her own life on purpose.
There is the possibility this is a suicide. They need to look deeper into her personal life to see if she could have been depressed.
Police are asking him about his marriage. They want to know, did you have any problems in the marriage? Was there anything going on?
We're doing good. I mean, it was all happy. It was kisses in the morning, hugs at night. It was perfect.
But when investigators speak to Shari's family, they learn that the picture Dion paints of a perfectly happy couple may not be entirely accurate.
What can you tell us about Shari?
She was very agitated and she was not happy. You could look at Shari's eyes. The brightness was gone. That flame was gone.
The last time I saw her, she wasn't the happy, bubbly, and I noticed she'd put on a little weight. And she hadn't had her hair done, and it was like, what's going on?
Shari's loved ones believe they may know why she was so down in the dumps.
I had heard that Dion had cheated on Shari, but Shari always denied it. She said that he hadn't been intimate with her in a while, and so in my mind, it tells me that the relationship is not where it's supposed to be because they're still young people. I remember one night in particular, and this isn't like 11 o'clock at night, I'm on the phone with Shari, and I'm like, oh, it's quiet over there. Where's Dion? And she's like, I don't know. He said he's going to the gym. He's on my phone. I said, 11 o'clock at night. Where were you tonight?
It's at the gym. I told you I was working out.
Oh.
I'll get in the shower. I'll be better in a minute.
Okay. Shari had discovered that her husband was sexting numerous women, up to 10 or 12 women.
She assumed he was cheating. She never came out and told me she knew for a fact he was, but she knew. She just didn't want to admit it. You know, love is blind.
It is possible that Shari was so torn up by her husband's cheating ways that she decided to end it all right in front of him.
What are you doing? Put the gun down! What are you doing? There's no other women!
Yes, there are!
Why are you lying? I love you! No, don't!
Shari's friends and family, though, find that scenario unthinkable.
She has not committed no suicide. Shari would not have stuck no gun to her face.
While detectives still aren't certain what happened, Dion's alleged affairs do raise some eyebrows.
Dion is supposed to be a respectable man, and to find out from the family that he's been sexting other women, up to 12 women, it's sort of alarming to them.
But what's most alarming is what investigators learn next. Because sometimes when you start turning over rocks, you have no idea what you'll find underneath.
Still to this day, it like makes my chest hurt to even think about it.
Less than 2 days after the shooting death of 24-year-old Shari Cardmel, Nashville investigators have turned up some unexpected dirt on Shari's husband and fellow Metro officer, Dion Cardmel.
Dion is supposedly cheating on her, so she was not happy, which was adding a lot of stress to the marriage.
I think they had the American dream relationship on the outside, but I think she knew about the women and certain things that he was doing wasn't sitting well with her.
Dion painted a picture of domestic bliss in his initial interview that didn't gel with the facts. So now investigators had questions. Had Shari intentionally ended her own life, or had something else happened in their home?
When the medical examiner's report comes back, it only further muddies the water.
She had a wound, entered her cheek, and went up to the backside of her brain. It was straight of an angle shot, which could indicate she was turning her head this way when she was shot. It was difficult to replicate.
So is it even possible to shoot yourself like that?
It's difficult, but it's possible.
The medical examiner rules her death inconclusive. He needs more information to have an exact finding.
An inconclusive medical report means investigators must search beyond the possibility of a self-inflicted wound.
In order to say, okay, she turned the gun on herself and she somehow turned the angle and pulled the trigger, it was just so incredibly bizarre for her to do in the first place. Much more likely that it was somebody shooting her versus her doing it to herself.
But if that theory makes Dion their #1 suspect, his gunshot residue test is equally confounding.
The GSR test done on his hands came back from the state lab, and the findings were inconclusive.
The inconclusive GSR test means Dion is presumed innocent until the evidence suggests otherwise. It also means it's time for investigators to start looking at other possible suspects.
They started looking into these girls that he was allegedly messing around with on the side. He was texting a lot of different girls. He would meet them on traffic stops. He would exchange numbers with them. He would text them back and forth.
You know why I pulled you over?
Why?
You're looking really nice driving this car.
Thank you.
Is it possible one of these women fell hard for the handsome, hard-bodied Officer Cartmel and decided she'd do anything to have him all to herself?
This is not exactly a far-fetched idea. It happens all the time. Someone has many lovers, and the lovers are jealous of the wife's life with that man. They want to be with that man, and they're willing to kill for it.
You look at some of those scenarios, the possibility that something else may have occurred versus what he's telling us. Is it possible a third person may have come in and done this, and he's somehow, for some reason, covering for that person?
But getting each of Dion's alleged mistresses to go on the record about their affair is no easy task, especially when at least one of these women is already married.
We had one girl that actually had some sort of an affair with him, but it was difficult to really nail down because there were some people who maybe they were involved with him that were not willing to acknowledge that when we were conducting the investigations.
Over the next few weeks, detectives questioned several of Dion's alleged lovers, including one of the women he met on the job, Denise Harris.
What can you tell us about your connection to Dion and Shari?
I really care about Dion, but I wouldn't hurt his wife. I was at work on March 16th. Call my supervisor.
They got nowhere with Denise or any of these other women.
Investigators may have hit a dead end with Dion's mistresses. But shining a light on every corner of the Cartmels' personal lives turns up yet another unsettling discovery.
We've collected a lot of stuff out of the house, and a lot of it was bills. A lot of them was her bills that someone wouldn't even open.
They were in financial trouble, Dion and Shari was. Shari liked the finer things, so she enjoyed going out and spending money.
It's a situation many young couples encounter. But in this case, could the stress of financial woes have caused a volatile side of Dion to emerge?
I would say it caused an issue after they bought their house. It caused a lot of arguments, where she was spending her money, how she was spending her money, where it was going to.
In fact, Shari's friend, Stephanie Lindblom, tells police about one such incident she witnessed 5 days before Shari's death.
What can you tell us about Shari at the workplace?
He had come into the ER about a week before in a rage.
Well, she hadn't paid her mortgage last month, so when that happened, her husband stormed in a huge rage, and he started beating on tables and yelling at her and cursing.
I mean, he was hands slapping on the desk, cussing at her, saying, "You're gonna get me this GD money. I'm tired of playing your effing games." She was like, "I'll get you your money later," and he refused to take that as an answer.
How did she react to that?
She was embarrassed. She said, "Please leave, you're embarrassing me." And he still yelled at her and cursed at her.
Her coworkers are stunned. One of the coworkers walks out, and she ends up getting an email from Shari a few minutes later saying, "Please don't leave me up here with this nut."
She thought he was going to physically assault her right there in front of everybody else. So those are some big issues, big red flags.
With this dark side of Dion emerging, detectives decide it's time to take a closer look at their fellow officer.
We go by what the evidence tells us. And what he was telling us and what the evidence was telling us didn't jive. So that's where we had a problem.
2 months, police in Nashville, Tennessee have been investigating the troubling shooting death of fellow officer Dion Cartmell's wife, Shari. And as interviews with Shari's friends and family continue, investigators begin to wonder if Dion's marital transgressions extended beyond adultery.
There was a lot of financial problems in the marriage. He just become so angry that he just didn't care. Some of her friends suspected some issues between the two of them, that perhaps he was being violent towards her.
He was calling her vulgar names, cursing at her. Even friends and family members heard him referring to her as the B word many times. People found his demeanor with her very, very disturbing.
He was possessive. I would say he was very jealous of Shari. She was a very beautiful young girl. And I think any time she may have been shown attention by somebody, he would perceive that as a threat to him.
If he would call and she wouldn't answer her phone, he was thinking that she was out doing stuff that she wasn't supposed to be doing, maybe cheating on him.
It's all about control with him. He didn't necessarily want Shari anymore, but he didn't want anyone else to have her, which is, the whole thing was kind of bizarre, but this is how he was living his life.
In my mind, Shari was displaying symptoms of somebody who was dealing with domestic violence. I just wanted my sister to be away from him.
I think it became intolerable for Shari at some point, and she began to hate her life. And eventually, things began to crack.
But as authorities delve deeper, they also learn something else. It seems Dion's story about Shari's first accidental shooting in their house was pure fiction.
I said, Shari, ooh, shot a hole. It's a hole in the mattress. So I said, that's where your head would be. Who did that? She looked at me and just smiled. I said, Shari, did he do that at your head? She wouldn't answer me. But in my heart, I knew he did it.
Investigators re-examine evidence collected at the scene, knowing they're dealing with a potentially violent person who likes to play fast and loose with the facts.
It was just different things inside the crime scene that didn't quite add up. In particular, the blood, I think, was the biggest. We noticed to the left of the front door what appeared to be high velocity or high impact stains, which seemed inconsistent with the story we were getting that she was shot over by the couch. Blood seemed to go from the front door in a semicircular pattern around to the couch where Shari was found.
How does blood get from the couch to the door?
Right. Let's get an expert in here on that.
We made the determination, let's take crime scene photographs, let's do all that and take it to somebody who does this as an expert. And that's what I did. I took all the evidence myself and personally delivered it to Jerry Finley, who's a nationally recognized expert in blood spatter, crime scene, reconstruction, that type of thing.
Jerry Finley agreed with what the investigators had already suspected. Shari was not shot on the couch.
For the blood transfer, it's high impact. We're talking about a weapon, a gun, which caused a high mist, high velocity to hit the shirt, which would not happen through his interaction with her. Just trying to do CPR or something like that.
When the bullet penetrates the body, it just like throwing a pebble into a body of water. It splashes out. And in order for him to get that, you have to be near the person that was shot.
It tells us that somehow, some way, he had to be facing the victim when the shot occurred because it's high impact, it would come straight back.
Detectives believe the physical evidence now points to Dion as the shooter. But it's a review of Shari's timeline the day of the incident that seems to cement that theory.
The timeline didn't make sense to me because she had just left from work.
He's given several stories about what they were doing in that short amount of time. Using video from the Skyline Medical Center, they're able to see exactly when she left, exactly when she pulled out of the parking lot.
The 911 call came in at approximately 4:46 p.m., but Shari didn't leave the hospital until 4:30 p.m.
It didn't make sense that she had time to get from Skyline parking lot, home, cook chicken, mess around with the gun, and then the 911 call come in.
We know how long it takes to get from the hospital to the house. And then a short time she was in the house, he's calling 911. So a lot of things he says occurred was physically impossible to have occurred.
In addition to the questionable timeline of Dion's version of events, there was another statement he made that Shari's friends simply knew couldn't be true.
The cooking is a joke in itself. That girl never cooked, ever. We ate out all the time. She never cooked.
So when he said Shari was cooking chicken, when we initially met with the police, we was like, Shari touched no raw meat because Shari don't care for raw meat. Shari couldn't stand the texture of it, and she was not touching.
Nashville police present their case to the district attorney. And on May 28, 2010, a grand jury hands down an indictment for first-degree murder against Dion Cardmell. Shortly thereafter, police move in to arrest their fellow officer.
I had his cell phone number, and I was communicating with him back and forth about, we're going to come arrest you. We'd like you to give yourself up. We didn't want to create a potential barricaded subject or situation like that. And when he came out the front door, he was actually laughing. And he came out, and my guys went up, they handcuffed him, and they took him into custody.
As lawyers on both sides prepare for trial, folks in East Nashville can't help but wonder if the law will be applied more leniently to this young man who was sworn to enforce it.
My biggest concern was that Dion was going to get away with this because Dion was a police officer.
On August 16, 2011, once proud Nashville police officer Dion Cardmell is brought into a Davidson County criminal courtroom to stand trial for the murder of his 24-year-old wife, Shari.
He stared me down, and I stared right back at him because I'm thinking, buddy, you gotta pay. Your lies have caught up with you.
State attorneys take the floor first and present to the jury a case of anger turned into murderous rage.
We believe Shari was getting ready to go back to the hospital to go to a retirement celebration that one of her co-workers was having, and he didn't like that.
There's no question Shari was not happy in this marriage, and though only Dion knows what happened next, Shari might well have said something to Dion that set him off.
Something traumatic happened. Either they started arguing over money, over the fact that she was going out with friends that night. Perhaps she was upset about something that she found him doing.
No, you're not going anywhere. We got bills to discuss. Sit your ass down.
I'm sick of your crap, Dion.
He was prone to emotional outbursts. I think that's what occurred.
You think I'm stupid? I know you're sleeping with a coworker. You're not going anywhere.
You're suspicious that I'm the one seeing.
I see how they look at you and how you look at them. You always text on your phone. You think I'm stupid?
You know what? You're crazy,
I'm
Dion.
crazy.
I made a big mistake marrying your sorry ass.
We believe that's when he flipped out. That's when he shot her.
Prosecutors tell jurors that afterwards, Dion tried to cover his tracks. But the forensic evidence was his undoing.
She was shot at the door. She was drugged from the door to the couch and laid across the couch like a rag doll.
Everything you hear him saying when he's going through the motions on the 911 call, setting up like he's doing CPR, I believe at that time what he was actually doing was setting up the scene, putting his chicken in the oven and all that stuff, and that he wasn't doing any of the CPR because he never even moved off the sofa. He just totally staged all of it, in my opinion.
But when Dion surprisingly agrees to take the stand in his own defense, he continues to deny he pulled the trigger that killed his wife.
I remember just leaning up to get it, and that's what I heard. But I heard the bang, and I could feel the force on the side of me. This, the worst day of my life. I'm not gonna try to sit here and relive it. I tried everything I could to push this out of my head completely.
You shoot your wife?
No.
And when it's Dion's defense team's turn, they remind jurors that there are two sides to every case.
They brought in their own expert on the blood spatter to try to refute whatever the state blood spatter experts said.
The defense's forensic pathologist testified that the blood found on both sides of Shari's hands did not support a defensive posture.
The defense also calls attention to the gunshot residue tests done on Dion's hands, which turned out to be inconclusive. However, prosecutors have a plausible explanation.
A napkin had been recovered from inside the Cartmel's living room following the shooting, and an analysis conducted on that napkin 3 months after Dion's arrest had tested positive for gunshot residue.
He used that napkin, put it around that gun, hoping it'll shield Saul from getting on his hand, and he fired and shot him.
On August 26, 2011, both sides rest, and the jury retires to deliberate Dion's fate, while Shari's family waits in agonizing anticipation. After 6 hours, the jury returns with a verdict.
The conclusion of the trial, he was found guilty of second-degree murder.
They just couldn't show that it was premeditated.
It's not quite the verdict prosecutors were hoping for.
It's questionable whether it's, premeditation. I think we had an argument premeditation they need to consider, but I think clearly we're very satisfied with second-degree murder.
For Shari's loved ones, the verdict
Control her, and I think that's the bottom line.
He probably thought, if I can't have her, nobody can have her.
I don't think he ever loved her. I think he was infatuated, and it was a conquest for him to get her. He couldn't love her. To do that, love don't work like that.
A family man, an Air Force officer, vanishes into thin air.
We were supposed to have a get-together. His family had a cookout scheduled, and he responded that he would be there and never showed up.
A police investigation leads to ghastly discoveries.
He said that him and his uncle had even laughed. I wonder whose grave we're digging.
He said that he was going to first put some dirt around because that he was good at that kind of stuff.
And a criminal trial exposes a mastermind whose evil strains the limits of belief.
A Hollywood screenwriter could make something like this up.
He's a creative criminal, somebody who will stop at nothing to get what they want.
No sense of right or wrong whatsoever.
I have never seen a case like this.
Quite possibly the most dangerous, egotistical, diabolical person I've ever dealt with. It was astonishing.
October 12, 2007. It's an ordinary afternoon at police headquarters in the Dallas suburb of Garland, Texas. But this routine day is soon disrupted by the arrival of 2 agents from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs.
Hi, can I help you?
Yeah, we had a check on a property. They were investigating a default on a veteran's loan.
Sergeant Doss, can you help them?
Yeah, sure. And some suspicious circumstances caused them to come to the police department and have us get involved with them.
The homeowner in question is Michael Giles, a retired and decorated NCO for the United States Air Force, whose pending default is cause for concern.
Michael is very disciplined. He was never late on anything. Everything was always up to par and paid.
Michael Giles never missed a VA payment in his life on his home.
It's his sister. I hope this helps.
Thank you. When authorities track down Michael's sister Gwen, they're in for a surprise.
Thanks, Miss Haney, for your accommodations.
Oh, sure, no problem.
They asked me the last time I had any contact with my brother, and I told them that the last time I actually saw him was the end of June in 2006.
So you haven't seen your brother for more than a year?
No. Now, we've texted and emailed, but I haven't actually seen him.
Has Michael Giles met some sinister fate? Or is there a more reasonable explanation for his limited communication?
Michael Giles was a very private man. He was always to himself.
In order to resolve this anomaly in an orderly man's life, Texas law enforcement must confront a sordid case of false identity, brazen lawlessness, and cold-hearted betrayal.
It was amazing what this person could do. It was like a puppet master, just pulling all the strings.
Michael Giles was born in 1959 and spent his childhood in Monroe, Louisiana, where he and his 5 siblings made the most of country living.
We actually grew up on my grandmother's farm, gardening and just playing.
We're a fun-loving family. We're a tight-knit family.
When Michael's parents divorced in 1968, the family left behind the rural haven of Louisiana for something more cosmopolitan.
We moved to Dallas because my mom had already relocated here, and then she came back and got us once she got settled here, and she remarried at that time.
Michael had little difficulty adjusting to his new, more fast-paced surroundings.
He was always smiling, joking, having fun.
And as he grew into a young man, that happy-go-lucky outlook developed into one of conviction and duty.
Michael attended Carter High School, and Mike graduated in 1977. All he wanted to ever do was go to the military. And as soon as he graduated from high school, a year later he went into the Air Force.
Michael seemed to do very well in the military. He received many honors.
He did get lots of medals and was honored quite a bit.
While stationed in England in the mid-1990s, Michael's focused discipline was no match for the charms of an attractive young woman on the base named Quinetta Harris.
Honey, let me introduce you to Michael, good friend of mine.
Hi.
Very, very nice to meet you, man.
You too. Michael met Quinetta when he was in the military stationed in England, and at that time she was married to another serviceman.
Quinetta was a very intelligent person. She was a nurse, well-traveled. She was well-spoken.
All right, Mike, we gotta go. You ready to go, baby?
Yeah.
All right, bro. So you take care, shit.
Michael was too respectful to make an advance on a married woman. But fate soon did the heart's bidding.
Hey, how are you? How's your day?
Good, how you been?
You look really nice.
Oh, really? Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
Quinetta and her husband had some marital problems and split up. During that time, Michael and Quinetta formed a relationship.
What can I get you to drink?
I'll take what you're having.
Sure.
After her and the other guy divorced, Mike went to her ex-husband and asked him if he minded if he dated Quinetta. And he gave him his blessings.
Cheers.
Michael and Quinetta appeared to be an item. They continued their relationship overseas.
But soon, the itinerant nature of military life wrought havoc on the romance. And in 1998, Michael retired from the Air Force and returned to Dallas.
He made his way back to Texas, started planting some roots down in Garland, Texas, started working for Southwestern Bell.
But once back home, Michael found Quinetta hard to forget.
There was allegedly an on-again, off-again relationship between those two. That they would meet up every so often.
She was living in Detroit. He was living here in Texas. But she would visit him.
While smoldering passion burned, the fire eventually fizzled out again, and Michael resolved to lead a comfortable life in the quiet of military retirement.
Michael Giles' discipline when it came to his lifestyle was very meticulous. He saved every dime. He made the right decisions.
But as the years wore on, Michael's family wondered if all the trappings of his success weren't meant to be shared with a special someone.
Michael's home was 3 bedrooms, 2 living areas, formal dining room, and a office.
He had a life that I would be proud to emulate. Buying his house, getting his life in order, and then he'll be able to share that with someone special.
When Michael attended a family event in 2006, the arrival of a surprise guest made them wonder if he hadn't already found that special someone after all.
Hey, everybody, this is Pamela.
Michael and Pamela first met during his military days when he had been stationed in New Mexico. They had since reconnected and struck up a relationship.
He introduced her to the aunts and the uncles and nieces and nephews and all that. We really thought that it was a serious relationship.
These first buds of love had to survive the harsh realities of living hundreds of miles apart.
She was a nurse back in New Mexico.
But distance did little to dampen their devotion to each other.
He continued working, but was also spending a lot of time with Pamela. They were seeing each other a lot, especially since they didn't live in the same city.
For Michael to introduce Pamela to our family and have her come and visit him as often as she did, we really thought that they would end up getting married.
But his family now wonders, with fear mounting by the day, if Michael had simply decided to walk away from his picture-perfect life, or if the answer to his disappearance is something more sinister.
It was the money trail that started bringing everything to light, and when the mortgage wasn't being paid, set off
all kinds of red flags.
It is autumn 2007 in Garland, Texas, and agents of the Veterans Administration have contacted police after one of their own, Michael Giles, has mysteriously defaulted on a house loan.
Michael had a pretty substantial amount of money saved and was very faithful in making all of his payments on time. And then just abruptly in 2006, they stopped receiving any payments from him.
Interviews with Michael's loved ones confirm for authorities the possibility of something amiss.
The last communication that I had with him was on June 30th.
But the family also indicates that lengthy periods of time without contact was not unusual.
Michael was a private person. Michael sometimes went a few weeks without talking to his family and friends.
He kind of kept to himself if something was bothering him. It's that military thing where I can handle my own.
But even a family accustomed to Michael's habits couldn't deny something strange about their last contact.
Hello? The last time they had seen Michael was at the end of June. And he was supposed to come over on July 4th for a cookout. They received a call saying that he was not going to be able to attend this cookout.
Oh, is everything okay? Michael always attended our family gatherings, especially on holidays, because he loved to eat. Okay, baby, well, call me back, all right? Bye.
As the months rolled by, the family describes having to subsist on only the barest scraps of communication.
The family would continue to try to reach out to Michael via email and text message. Sometimes they would get responses back that were just very short. I'm okay. That's about it. No detailed explanation of where he's been, what he's been doing, nothing of that nature.
Until one day in early 2007, when Michael's mother got a phone call.
Her phone rang from Michael's cell phone number. Michael?
But it wasn't Michael on the line.
There was a lady called and said that she was calling from a cruise ship and that Mike had dropped his phone leaving off the boat.
A cruise?
Yes, he and his lovely wife. His wife? She said that him and his wife were getting off the boat and he dropped his phone and to let him know that she would turn it into the steward.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
The family breathed a collective sigh of relief.
After receiving that phone call, I called my sister and I told her, I said, Mike's gone off and got married.
We didn't know because of that privacy level he kept.
You think him and Pam finally hitched up and he didn't let us know anything about it?
I don't know.
But when VA agents contact Pamela via law enforcement in New Mexico, the answer isn't what they had hoped.
I haven't been on a cruise and Michael's not my husband. He's my boyfriend.
Okay, when was the last time you were in Dallas?
Maybe over a year ago?
The fact that Pamela hadn't seen Michael in so long was disturbing, because they were just starting to get serious around the time that he was last seen by his family.
And have you recently seen Michael?
Not since the last time I went to Dallas. And then he sent me a text message saying that he needed some space and some time to think over things.
Pamela was heartbroken that Michael had cut her off cold turkey. Eventually, she decided to move on with her life.
In October of 2007, with suspicious elements mounting, agents make the recommendation that Michael's family had been fearing.
They informed me that I needed to file a missing person report, which was very concerning to me. Something must be wrong.
With Michael's disappearance now officially a police matter, investigators, led by Garland detective Gary Sweet, expand their search. And what they find quickly takes them into unknown territory.
When we checked his financial records, we found that all the money that was coming out of his accounts was coming out in the Detroit, Michigan area.
It's a development that shifts attention away from Michael's former flame, Pamela, in New Mexico.
She was eliminated as a suspect. There was nothing there to lead us to Pamela.
But the flurry of financial activity in Detroit gives Detective Sweet his first concrete lead.
Hello?
Yes, Gwen, Detective Sweet. Would there be any reason why Michael is sending money to Detroit for a co-applicant by the name of Quinetta Harris?
When investigators make a trip to Detroit, they'll uncover a shocking secret that suggests Michael may very well still be alive.
His friends never knew. his family never did. Everyone was baffled.
48 hours after Michael Giles is listed as missing, detectives have discovered a promising new lead in his personal records, a lead steering them towards Detroit and away from their initial suspect, Michael's former girlfriend, Pamela Stone.
We checked his records, and Juanetta Harris in Detroit, Michigan was on his bank accounts. Juanetta worked as a nurse's aide at a nursing home.
Authorities are surprised to discover that Michael's family had never heard of such a significant figure in his life.
He never mentioned her. He never said one thing about her.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible Michael Giles had simply left his previous life behind in Garland and started anew?
We had to look at everything. I mean, could he have moved to Detroit and be living with Juanetta? Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to go to Detroit, find out where this money's going.
Detective Sweet flies to Detroit to make contact with Quinetta at her home on the east side of town.
Hi. Are you Quinetta Harris?
Yes, I am.
I introduced myself to her. I'm an investigator from Garland, Texas, and I'm investigating a missing person. Told her it was Michael Giles, and she said, yes, I know Michael.
Michael and Quinetta met when Mike was in the Air Force. She was married to a subordinate of his. After she had divorced her husband and Mr. Giles had pursued her, they had a relationship.
At some point after he moved back from England, Michael and Quinetta had broken up. She had gone back to Michigan, and Michael pursued other love interests.
When Detective Sweet inquires about Michael's financial records, Quinetta drops a bombshell.
Is there any reason why he's supporting you financially?
Yes, we have a child together.
She said that they had a daughter together and that Michael had put her on these accounts as child support.
Michael's family had never mentioned him having a child.
And where is that child?
Well, she's at school, but she does live with me.
So you haven't had any contact with him, is that correct?
No, he really just helps out financially to provide for a child.
Quinetta said that Michael had worked it out with the bank in Michigan so that it would be easier for her to access the funds for their child.
It seems a reasonable explanation, but detectives will still need to confirm Quinetta's story. With suspicion swirling, detectives head 90 miles west of Detroit to a bank that handles some of Michael's accounts. There, they sit down with a financial advisor named Donald Eberly.
Hey, I've got to go.
All right, stick to Sweet.
Donald Eberly?
Happen to handle Michael Giles' finances?
I advise him on his finances, yes.
Have you ever heard of a lady by the name of Anita Harris?
Yes, Miss Harris came in here wanting power of attorney over his estate. Juanetta Harris contacts Donald Eberly in East Lansing, Michigan, and presents this power of attorney that is signed by Michael Giles.
Michael Giles needed to appear in front of people and actually sign documents that could be witnessed and notarized.
And I explained to her that she needed to have him present in order to make the transfer.
Quinetta responds that Michael is ill. He was involved in a car crash and subsequently had a stroke.
She explains to him that he's basically bedridden. So Donald says, well, then I can go to your home and he can do it there. So she agrees to this. So I actually met with him right at the bedside and we got the paperwork done.
What date was that?
I believe that was September 29th, 2006.
And you saw him that day?
Yeah, of course. He had trouble talking, but he was able to get the necessary paperwork done.
Michael Giles basically signed over financial and personal history to Quinetta.
The financial advisor's story basically matched up to what Quinetta told police. And it also suggested that Michael was alive about 3 months after his family last saw him.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, officer.
Detectives return to Dallas, satisfied that Quinetta's circumstance necessitates shared finances. At the same time, they still wonder why Michael stopped payment on his property if he was alive for all that time.
What often happens with something traumatic, like an accident or a sickness, is that people fall out of their normal routine. They might even fall behind on their bills. Certainly this could have happened with Michael.
As they begin poring over reports of police activity in Michael's neighborhood, detectives stumble upon another new lead. A 911 call that came from Michael's neighbor on the evening of July 5th, 2006, soon after Michael was last seen by his family.
The next door neighbor had called in and said there were 2 pickups and several Hispanic males loading our neighbor's furniture into the trucks.
Hi, I'd
like to report some suspicious activity.
The neighbor made note of the license plate number of the moving truck while police were on their way.
Okay, thank you.
While she is out watching the vehicles, waiting on the police to arrive, a woman comes out of the house and comes over and stated that she was the new owner of the house.
Hi, I'm the homeowner from next door. Did we disturb you at all?
She says she was just selling some furniture.
The situation seemed to have already resolved itself by the time police arrived.
Didn't know, just trying to be neighborly.
They had also spoken to the lady that said she owned the house, and no, there was no suspicion, so everything was good.
But now, over a year later, detectives suspect there was more to this call than initially met the eye. They tracked down the license plate number of the vehicle that was in the driveway that night.
I ran the tags for the van. Came back belonging to Francisco Vacuna.
Bring him in. I want to talk to him.
Okay.
We made contact with him. He went by the nickname Vic, and he did remember going over there.
Let's come in, Mr. Boone.
Francisco Vicuna describes for police a curious encounter he had when an unnamed woman approached him on the block about purchasing furniture.
My family and I were out in that area trimming trees, doing some landscaping.
This woman approached them, asking them if they wanted to buy the furniture. And they bought every piece of furniture in the house for $300.
Only $300?
Yes, $300 for all of it.
But the furniture purchase was not the end of the transaction with this mysterious woman. And what Mr. Vicuna says next will have police scrambling for an explanation.
As we were about to leave, she asked if we would do a side job for her.
She asked if any of them would dig a hole for her in the backyard.
Francisco says they agreed to dig the hole.
We were anxious to know where he dug that hole at in that backyard, so we asked him if he would be able to show us, and he said he would.
And what Francisco shows them will give investigators their first concrete evidence.
It was about the size, the foot of about a 6-foot person.
The case took a turn as soon as they dug up that slab.
6 days after former Air Force officer Michael Giles is reported missing, investigators are pursuing a new lead. According to a man named Francisco Vicuna, aka Vic, someone claiming to be the owner of Michael Giles' house hired Vic and his uncle to dig a large hole in the backyard. Vic leads detectives to the house, where they find a strange addition to the hole that had been dug.
They found this mysterious slab, a 4-inch slab of concrete that's not in the ground like a sidewalk, a slab above the ground like maybe it's set something like an AC unit on. But it wasn't the right size, and in the location it was, it made no sense whatsoever.
It looked totally different than the other cement, and it wasn't there before.
Detectives now suspect they are onto something big. But while authorities gather resources to search the house and property, detectives need to be sure of one thing: the identity of the woman who ordered the hole to be dug.
One of the individuals that bought the furniture, he was shown what we call in Texas a 6-photo lineup. Quinetta Harris was in that 6-photo lineup, and he picked her out immediately as the person who had sold him the furniture.
Law enforcement has their suspect.
Every single thing we found with Michael Giles came back to Quinetta Harris.
But until they locate what's under that concrete slab, they're not yet sure what the crime is. On October 19, 2007, a week after Michael Giles has been listed as a missing person, Garland police, in cooperation with the FBI, begin poking around Michael's backyard.
The Garland Police Department got permission to search the property, took a canine unit out there, and specifically led the canine around the area of the oddly poured concrete slab.
They brought a metal rod with a handle, a sharp point, and went around the yard and poked holes all through the yard. And then they had the dog go around and sniff the holes. The dog pretty much ran over every hole there until it got to the slab, and then it started pawing at the ground and sort of digging a little bit. The dog was interested in them there.
He's got a positive alert over here.
An alerted canine unit gives the investigative team the go-ahead to excavate the slab. As the excavation begins, Detective Sweet and his team are in Detroit, ready to move on their prime suspect, Quinetta Harris.
The news was also out there. If somehow she found out this is being excavated, she knows that he's there. Our fear was that she may try to flee.
It isn't long before the excavation turns up a sure sign of the macabre.
They could smell decomposed human flesh. It's a pretty distinct smell. And they were smelling decomposition. So we know now for sure we've got a grave.
While the FBI evidence team is out there excavating, they find a decomposed body wrapped in a blanket with a throw pillow also in his grave.
They are able, on field examination, to see that there is a bullet wound to the head.
Michael was later identified by his dental records through the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Michael's family reels in the wake of this astonishing development.
It was a blow that was gut-wrenching. To find out that he had been buried in the backyard for over a year. And to know that I actually went by and knocked on the door, and he was there. He was just back there, killed.
Meanwhile in Detroit, Detective Sweet's team gets word of the gruesome discovery, and they make their move.
We found a body.
Once the discovery of the body was made, Detective Sweet then was able to arrest Juanetta.
But before detectives can be sure they've caught their perp, an individual will come forward with an alarming admission that will have everyone scratching their heads.
A lawyer states, I have a client who claims to have killed Michael Giles.
18th, 2007. After police and FBI exhume Michael Giles from a makeshift grave behind his own house, his former girlfriend, Quinetta Harris, is taken into custody without incident. But under questioning, she resolutely maintains her innocence.
When I confronted her and told her that we had her identified as the person selling the furniture, she still denied.
One of the neighbors that was there basically identified you and said you were there and some Hispanic guys were moving the furniture out.
Me?
Mm-hmm. They picked you out of a 6-picture lineup.
The conversation then went to the concrete slab that she had poured.
You contacted Stab Concrete?
No, I didn't.
No.
Finally, I told her that that concrete slab was being torn up, and she sat very quietly looking at me, and I said, and we dug that up, and I told her, so Michael's not missing anymore.
Michael was under that concrete slab that you had poured down there.
I didn't have that poured down
And
there.
that hole that you had dug.
I didn't have that hole dug.
You're in a lot of trouble.
While Quinetta remains in custody at the station, detectives execute a search on her home and uncover a treasure trove of incriminating research and correspondence.
Detectives recovered cell phones, computers, records, anything that you can imagine that linked her to this crime and linked her to Michael Giles.
Authorities also find the power of attorney document granting Quinetta access to Michael's accounts, signed by Michael in September of 2006. But investigators know he had already been deceased at this time. How could a dead man sign a legal document?
We found that this was notarized by a lady in the Detroit area, and we made a point to locate this lady to ask her who signed these papers.
The notary is Detroit resident Patricia Turner, who police contact at her place of work.
Ms. Turner?
I tell her that I'm investigating a murder, and she is very uncooperative.
Ms. Turner, there are serious implications falsifying legal documents. And we can make your life very difficult if you don't cooperate. You need to tell me who signed Michael Giles' name in this document.
She was very cooperative after that. Told me who it was.
DeAndre Knight.
Detectives have never heard the name DeAndre Knight. Who was this mysterious man?
This was Quinetta's common-law husband.
Investigators are shocked to learn that Michael Giles hadn't been the only man in Quinetta's life at the time of his murder.
We'll be in touch.
This is a pretty intricate, detailed, plotted scam.
This eye-opening admission arms law enforcement with a provocative new theory. In collusion with DeAndre Knight, Quinetta Harris had gone to extraordinary lengths to milk the murdered Michael Giles for all he was worth. The plan involved duping Michigan financial advisor Donald Eberly.
They rented out like a hospital bed, had him in full bandages, had him where he could barely speak. She had a notary there.
He pretended he had a stroke. This was DeAndre, and he signs this information in front of Donald Eberly.
It is a stunning revelation. But as authorities begin their investigation of DeAndre Knight, the situation back in Texas has taken a turn for the bizarre.
Quinetta was able to post a $500,000 bond.
While Quinetta is out on bond, a lawyer contacts Josh Healy at the district attorney's office and states, I have a client who claims to have killed Michael Giles. The client is 19-year-old Dallas resident Erica Flores. Erica Flores arrived at the district attorney's office to speak with Josh and Detective Sweet in regards to the murder of Michael Giles.
I had to keep asking her to speak up because she was just so soft-spoken. Finally got the story out of her that she was with two friends of hers by the name of Juan and Vic. Juan and Vic were names that were actually partly involved. They did dig the hole.
They came on and picked me up and was smoking, and they wanted to rob a man at Walmart in Garland. And then they followed them home and they put shirts on riot and pushed them in the house. When Victor came, they went to Canada and told me to shut up. And so they put the body in the bathroom and we left.
In order to verify a story that could change the face of a major murder case, Detective Sweet ensures that Erica's version of events jives with the evidence they collected in the field.
So I told her, you're going to have to give me a little bit more detail than that. So, I mean, how did you kill him? She says, I shot him in the head.
They gave me the pillow and held the pillow while I shot him.
But as the questioning gets more detailed, Erica's replies became more suspect.
I said, I know you're lying. And we went through that, and she broke and admitted that the story wasn't true.
Once they started showing me the pictures of the guy and how he was buried, that's when I just started telling them. I met a lady earlier, and she asked me to come here and say all this.
When Erica's mother, Elizabeth, is contacted, she's shocked by her daughter's confession.
The police came to my house and said, your daughter been convicted of murder. I said, no, that's a lie. That's not true.
Elizabeth agrees to come down to the station where her daughter is still being held. After detectives explain the situation, they separate the two of them and conduct further questioning.
From the beginning, how did you first get started with this situation?
I was at home and I received a phone call.
Hello? Hi, is this Erica?
And she was offering me a job to be a private investigator.
We're investigating the systematic racism in the court system here in Dallas. And I'm wondering if you'd like to help with this worthy cause. Can we meet for an interview?
I had been doing a lot of job applications online. So when I got the call, I was just like, thinking, hey, I got the job offer. It seemed to be official, so that's why I went to the interview.
I'll let you know how it is.
Okay.
During the interview at El Centro College in downtown Dallas, the woman Erica met with laid out a plan that Erica couldn't have known might have landed her in prison.
She introduced a letter, that she had pre-wrote, and she had me to copy everything down. She told me the people that I would be meeting, and she told me to basically, act like, I did.
Detectives are floored by Erica's story. They leave the room to go speak with her mother, Elizabeth. As detectives explain the details of the crime to which her daughter had confessed, Elizabeth makes a disturbing connection.
And a light bulb goes off for Elizabeth. That sounds like Quinetta Harris.
According to Elizabeth, while she was serving time in jail on drug charges, she befriended Quinetta, who was in custody awaiting trial.
I was in jail with her, and she told me her story.
How many conversations do you think you guys had?
She just started being my friend, buying me stuff. They started asking me how many kids and stuff I got.
They were asking me questions about in jail, so I was in jail. I should ask me stuff about my kids.
What kind of questions about your kids?
She asked me how old was they. What'd you say their name is again?
Once Quinetta Harris posted bond, she put her plan to frame young Erica Flores into motion.
Or somehow she got my whole number.
She's very shrewd. So yes, to have her pull that off. We'll get her back here. We'll just get home.
After releasing Erica Flores and her mother, Quinetta is swiftly returned to custody, this time without bond.
She was arrested for violating condition of her bond, to have no communications, interference with the case.
But even though Quinetta Harris is now in the hands of law enforcement, she's not going down without a fight.
This woman just wouldn't stop. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, even from jail.
In April 2008, police discovered that Quinetta Harris had coerced a young woman named Erica Flores to confess to the murder of Michael Giles.
Quinetta had manipulated this young girl as a last-ditch effort to get out of jail. Once the detectives connected the dots, they arrested her again, this time without bond.
Quinetta Harris waits in jail for a year and a half, and on October 6, 2009, she faces a jury of her peers as the state lays out a case of prodigious greed turned deadly.
Quinetta, she killed him for everything. She wanted all that he had, and she was going to do anything to get it.
Prosecutors argue that Quinetta waited for the perfect moment to execute her plan as she visited Michael in his home.
At some point, Michael's asleep on that couch. Quinetta approaches with the gun, covers his head with that pillow, shoots one time into his head. After that, she wraps up his body, puts it in one of the other rooms of the home. She has the grave dug in the backyard, goes back to Detroit, basically assumes his identity, empties his bank accounts.
From that point forward, Quinetta went to great lengths to make it seem Michael was still alive.
Hello? We found out that she actually murdered him on July the 3rd, and that on July 4th, my mom did not talk to my brother, but to Quinetta, who had purchased a voice-changing machine.
Prosecutors also claim it was Quinetta who made the call to Michael's family, posing as a cruise ship patron who had found Michael's lost phone.
She made the phone call using his phone to keep us quiet down.
And Quinetta's twisted string of lies didn't stop there.
Quinetta had told Detective Sweet that her youngest child was my brother's child, and we found out that that was not true.
It was just totally unbelievable. I couldn't believe that a person can just stoop so low.
When defense attorneys take the floor, they suggest to the jury that Quinetta's boyfriend, DeAndre Knight, was a far more likely suspect.
It was her position that there was a confrontation between Michael and DeAndre, that resolved itself in Michael being killed. There could have been a jealousy, love triangle going on.
But as the trial progresses, it becomes clear that evidence strongly favors the state.
Case against Quinetta was like an avalanche. I mean, it starts with a snowball, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the time the state was finished, this was just an avalanche of snow coming right at Quinetta Harris.
Quinetta's defense team is not so lucky.
No witnesses showed up. Not one single person showed up on her behalf.
But Quinetta is banking on the absence of the one person who can testify to her elaborate scheme of gaining control of Michael's assets.
When we started the trial, DeAndre Knight was not to be found.
DeAndre is the link between Quinetta and the money and how she accessed that money.
The state isn't about to let their prize witness go without a fight.
We went up to Detroit. We went and yanked him up there and flew him back for trial. And he was about to testify against Quinetta because we were going to charge him with everything.
We did file charges on him for his part in the forgeries.
They were about to have the star witness come down there and look at her and say, "You did this. I was there. I know you did this." She knew that at that point, the only thing she can do is plead guilty and hope for something other than a life sentence.
On October 12th, Quinetta Harris takes a plea deal, and the trial is stopped.
The plea agreement was that she plead guilty for murder and she would be sentenced to 50 years.
DeAndre Knight also takes a plea deal.
He did plead guilty and took a plea. He didn't do any time. He got probation and basically banned from the state of Texas.
Quinetta is remanded to federal prison. But for a justice system anxious to close the book on this bizarre case, one final twist awaits.
When Quinetta was officially sentenced, we thought that was the last we'd see of Quinetta Harris, but we were wrong.
In early 2016, authorities received startling news from the Department of Criminal Justice.
Quinetta Harris had been in prison almost 8 years, and there is a motion filed on behalf of Quinetta Harris. Her sentence was changed from 50 years to 8 years, meaning Quinetta Harris would get out of prison in about a month or two. It was signed by the new district judge, Judge Amber Givens.
Somehow the prison officials saw this and didn't think that was right.
Prison officials contacted the court and found out that the judge's signature had been forged, and the document was a fake.
It was a brazen bid for freedom by a person unpricked by conscience and heedless of the law.
In my 17 years of law enforcement, I've seen and come across a lot of things, worked a lot of cases. I have never seen a case like this.
Quinetta Harris is quite possibly the most dangerous, most egotistical, diabolical person I've ever dealt with in the criminal justice field.
But the law will now confine Quinetta Harris, and the family of Michael Giles will resume the long process of overcoming the loss of a man who chose the wrong woman to love.
Only God knows the miraculous things that he was getting ready to do. The sons and daughters he was getting ready to have.
He was the best brother ever, honestly. He was. He was a really good guy. And had he lived, he would have made some woman a really, really good husband.
Đúng rồi. Ông thì chết rồi. Ghét ghê. Ô, hài lòng mà hút. Ngon. Thích đâu vào bia. Có lại nữa không anh? Thế nên mình cả gà đi chứ chứ nhỉ? Cay. Cay nhỉ. Anh yêu thì vào đâu anh ăn nhiều vào. Còn lúc vào hút nữa mình. Anh về lên đồ lớp cho hút. Anh ăn nó không bỏ anh tí cũng đồ hút. Bye bye. Anh cứ mình gọi thế. Không phải giờ đâu có cái phải báo thù chứ đúng không? Từ từ đợi em xem đã. Vội làm cái gì? Đoán đến cơ hội báo thù. Sao nào? Kiếm tòa nhà nào để được tiếp này? Cho bây giờ xong rồi. Trời ơi! Chơi tiếp á? Lại đánh tiếp à? Shoot. Tiện ha. Mấy cái căn nhà. Vội lên anh. Cày. Ui dồi ôi. Cả biết hẳn đi đây. Con đây xong mình chơi. Tư Phương bao giờ có tiếp thì tiếp nhỉ các anh. Má mày hỏi tao biết cái đeo được. Con lấy kiểu trên sư cái con pháp sư ấy, con XD con gì đấy, con ông già đấy mà không kẹo trên, con nào kẹo trên, D đây kẹo trên, Con đi kiểu trên anh làm sao có đi vừa trâu. Chăm chỉ nhá nha. Chăm chỉ. Không ăn được thì anh cầm làm gì? Anh có biết được em cầm con AD đâu? Đấy. Đâu vậy? Ở kìa. Ui. Rất là phù chết. Ê. 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 Hello. Nó có sâu dưới dòng đất, run dưới dòng đất à? Game nó có run à? Run hay là gì dưới đất ấy? Tôi đào xong. Như con run con sâu đấy. Không biết nữa, nói chung là nó dí tôi em bị rồi tôi biết sống sao. Con gì anh? Mà nó giết phát tôi mất hết nguyên liệu. Cày ạ. Yeah. Xì. Ủa con đấy là như nào? Sao mình xuống lại chỗ đấy mà nó lại không xuất hiện nữa? Thế là xuống lại dưới đấy. Ok, lên cho an toàn, không nên dây dưa cái đám này đâu, phiền lắm. Đẹp. Nên để sớm tan. Đi có đi thời. Ui bu.